Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is DJ from London and I'm joined by Ashwin. It's been an exciting week in cricket. We've had the India-West Indies first ODI just completed. India have been playing the Under-19 World Cup. India have won the Under-19 World Cup. There's been other cricket ongoing. The IPL auction is coming in. We're going to get into all of that. But Ashwin, it's great to have you on the show again, man. It's we've not managed three of us together for a while because the time zones work in a way where the game, even though today's game was a bit of a early finish, it's just a little bit too late for Varun. So it's going to be the two of us again. So how's your week been?
Man, pretty great. Never a dull moment in the world of cricket, right? Hey, congratulations to the under-19 boys. It just feels, we'll talk about it later in the show, but it just feels unbelievable how strong the youth system is in Indian cricket. So just outstanding, such a phenomenal result. I think for some reason, I don't know if the world of Indian cricket needed it. I certainly needed it. I was pretty, it's been a heavy few weeks and from a cricket standpoint, but otherwise things are great, man. Been snowed in a little bit here, and many of our listeners have probably heard or been a part of the snowstorm kind of blanketing most of America at this point. So yeah, just staying warm. Unfortunately, like you said, every India-West Indies match starts at 2 a.m. my time. So it's not ideal. Today, my eyes opened at like 4 and I checked the score and I saw they weren't doing so well. I was hoping to wake up to watch the full second innings, but ended pretty quickly. So let's hope we have some better matches from here on.
Absolutely. And speaking of the United States, we recently got a review from Nitesh2811 from the United States of America, who says, I started listening to the podcast in January 2020 when I was introduced to podcasts as a concept. Edges and Sledges 2 years down the line still remains one of my favorites, and great to see the show getting bigger and better. Thank you to all three of you for keeping the flame of old school, friendly, passionate cricket banter and conversations alive. Nitish, thank you so much for that review. Every time we get one of these, it's pretty great to read, and the ratings on Spotify, the ratings on Apple. So guys, please do keep those coming in. But we are here to talk about the serious business of cricket, and today we saw India beat the West Indies in the first ODI by 6 wickets with 22 overs to spare. Ashwin, I know you didn't catch every ball of it. I know you've caught up on the highlights of it. But first game without Virat Kohli as, maybe it's not the first game without Virat Kohli as ODI captain because we had KL Rahul in South Africa. But first game for Rohit Sharma as the new ODI captain. Got off to a good start, won the toss, elected to field. So, what a start to the Rohit era, right?
I mean, yes, but no discredit to Rohit, obviously, but West Indies has just had, I think, 6 days turnaround versus from playing against England and had to quickly turn around. And we know they're not the strongest ODI side. I say that now, I'm going to regret it because they're going to come win the next game or something. But yeah, I mean, good to get a win on the board, but honestly, not the most excited about India's series against West Indies and Sri Lanka coming up. It's a little sad. I know it's part of our home season. It's important to do this stuff, but not the most exciting. I'm pretty excited about our T20s because West Indies is a world-class T20 side, but ODIs are not typically their forte.
Interesting. One of my friends actually said that the West Indies were actually packing for India while playing England last week, which is pretty funny comment, I thought. But let's talk a little bit about the 50 over format. Are you not excited about it because of the opposition or because of the format as well? Do you still find relevance in this 50 over format?
I mean, honestly, the relevance is just the World Cup, right? That's all it is for me. Is that the 50 over World Cup is still, well, rightly or wrongly, considered kind of the pinnacle from a World Cup standpoint and world champions, etc. 1983, 2011 for India. So that's really all it is, honestly. If I had to pick, and I've said this before, and I know it can be a controversial opinion, but if I had to pick, my favorite format is, of course, Test cricket, followed pretty closely by T20 and what the T20 World Cups and IPL bring to the sport. So for me, 50 over starts to disappear. Like, it doesn't have the long 5-day endurance stamina test, ups and downs, roller coaster swings of Test cricket, but it doesn't have the kind of quick bite-sized excitement of T20. And again, I know we will get a lot of flack for this potentially, but yeah, I think over time the format's starting to become less relevant, except for that World Cup for some reason.
Yeah, plus the ICC Champions Trophy, I think, which is still a tournament that is being played between the top 9 or 8 nations, or so I can't even remember. But interesting that you say that Test cricket for you is paramount, followed by T20 cricket. I think a lot of fans would identify with that sentiment because One day cricket is 8 hours, right? Taking 8 hours out of your day is tough. Unless it's a weekend and you're snowed in which case, yeah, you can watch the game if it's in the right time zone.
Yeah, but then ideally it doesn't start at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one day cricket is struggling for relevance. But what I do like a little bit about it, and maybe playing devil advocate, given that I am a lawyer in my other life, it allows you for comebacks, and we'll come to that as we talk about the India West Indies game, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. We start off. We've talked a lot about India not getting power play wickets. Right, this series we've rested Bumrah, and Siraj has come in. Siraj played today. Prasidh Krishna played today. We've also had some COVID replacements. Rituraj is out. Shreyas is out. We lost Shikhar Dhawan as well, and KL Rahul I think has family commitment, so he's not playing. So we had a sort of new look team. We're trying out other players, and I think this is the right forum for it. As I spoke to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast last week, we're not part of the ODI Super League because we've already qualified for the 2023 World Cup as hosts of the ODI World Cup. Yeah, so it's a time for us to try out people. So Kishan came in, Mayank came in. Washington replaced Ashwin, as I think we'd predicted on the show a couple of weeks ago, which I was pretty happy about. Chahal played as well. There's some new sort of faces who hadn't played for a little while. But
the one before you get to move past this first that you didn't mention was our number 6, and that was Deepak Huda.
Interesting,
and
yeah.
That was an interesting choice for me. And again, we can talk about it. But as we talk selections, I'm curious as to whether your thought process is: do you think he got that spot because of the COVID stuff? Because we were like, look, would Shreyas have played 4 or 5, pushing Sky down to 6, or was Huda brought in because he can bowl, but he didn't bowl again, which has happened before with, when we pick a number 6 who can bowl, like we did with Venkatesh Iyer. Here we picked Huda, but he didn't bowl. So I'm curious what you think about that one.
Yeah, I mean, he's effectively replaced Jadeja, who would have otherwise been replaced by Krunal, which interestingly Deepak Huda has history with because they fought while they were both in the same team at Baroda. But I think he's basically, we're trialing him for that all-rounder spot in the middle order. Huda's primarily a batsman, explosive batsman. I think plays for Punjab at the moment in the IPL.
Well, I don't think he's current. I don't think he was retained. So
he was not. We used to play for Punjab, right?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting though. Like I don't know. For some reason, when I wanted to dig a little deeper into Huda, he's 26. It feels like he's been on the IPL scene for much longer than that. He has played 80 odd IPL games. So I guess 10 to 15 games a season. He's been around 7-8 years or so. But it was his ODI debut, and so it was very interesting for me thinking like. In my head, Huda had been on the scene much longer than that. And so I was like, why are they bringing in talent who, a slightly older, more experienced talent? Why wouldn't we try more young guys? But at 26, if he finds that he can do, a batsman who can give you 3 to 4 overs and can finish games at 6, he does give us an option. For some reason, he hadn't been in my consideration set in a big way. So anyway.
Yeah, and it's about finding those players for replacements in case Jadeja doesn't recover from his knee injury. You've got Akshar Patel as well. You've got Washington Sundar, that spinning all-rounder, because we'll come to it later, but obviously the ODI World Cup next year is in India, and the T20 World Cup this year is in Australia. Big grounds, as we saw today. Ahmedabad was a huge ground, and we saw Chahal pick up 4 wickets, and we saw Sundar pick up 3 wickets. So spinners who can bat, and I think Jadeja is still the first candidate there because he's the best batter of them all, the most experienced player. He's played in the last World Cup as well. So I'd expect him to take a spot when he comes back. But it's nice to see that we're trying out different options in that area. Hardik Pandya, once he's fully fit, he'll be a contender for that number 6 spot as well. So it's good to see that there's enough. We're trying out more people, and the injuries to the main players or the players that played the last World Cup is giving us the option to try out the Venki Iyers, the Deepak Hudas. Of course, Iyer didn't play this or was dropped for this ODI series, interestingly. But yeah, let's get back to the power play. For once, we picked up a wicket in the power play. Shai Hope hit Siraj for 2 boundaries and then inside edged 1. And we saw the Siraj celebration. Now, I know there's been some chat on Twitter. Ashwin, have you watched Siraj celebrate recently? He's changed the celebration a little bit.
I mean, it's the Cristiano Ronaldo celebration,
yeah,
right?
What's
He's
going on?
basically... Yeah, it's so interesting because I don't fully get it. And again, somebody in our Discord or Twitter will tell me about it. But it seems like that Ronaldo celebration has just taken the world by storm at the Australian Open tennis, which I was watching a lot of over the last couple of weeks. The crowds were chanting it, and when you chant it in unison as a crowd, it kind of sounds like you're booing. So there was a lot of like, media coverage about, is the crowd booing people, or are they saying, sue or whatever the word is for the Ronaldo celebration? But it's very strange. And there's a million different ways to celebrate. Very strange that Siraj, of all people, would copy Ronaldo. I don't know the why. I don't know the insight into why he chose to do it, but he has fun with it. It's good. I mean, the West Indians like to celebrate. We've seen, the army salute celebrations, among other things. Bravo likes to dance when he celebrates, when he gets it. The sign off. So there's multiple different celebrations. So why not have some fun with it?
Absolutely, and I think the one thing that was hampering him from pulling out his old original celebration was Mayank was in the squad, brought in as a COVID replacement, but wasn't on the field. Because obviously Ishan Kishan played as an opening bat.
Yeah.
But he's got a lovely celebration with Mayank where they both like high five and they look up to the sky, right? Which is we saw in Australia quite often. Anyway, getting back to the game, Siraj takes a wicket, and then the West Indies, Washi comes on and picks up a couple of wickets. He bowls really beautifully to Darren Bravo, who was batting number 3. Beats him a number of times outside the off stump, and then brings one back in. But in the midst of that, he takes another wicket. I think it was King who hit it to mid wicket. Nice little catch there for Sky. And so we've talked a couple of weeks ago about Washington Sundar being a really crucial player for this team, because we've seen the lower order sort of collapse. We've seen them not contribute runs, and Washi is a class act with the bat. But what we saw today, Ashwin, was Washi taking wickets early on within the first 15 overs, and then when a partnership developed later, he came on and got Fabian Allen out as well. So how important, and I know maybe it's going to cause controversy, but I definitely think he plays every game in the white ball format ahead of Ravi Ashwin. Unless there's a need for a second or third spinner where Ashwin comes in for an attacking option. But I think Washington is just that balance that we need in the limited over squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super interesting, right? I've always thought of him as playing a critical sort of role in the T20 format, right? So it's very interesting, even the way we talk about it. And this is a discussion for a later day, but we talk about white ball cricket as white ball cricket. And for me, they are not the same game, not even close. I've said this many times. People have heard, I don't think you need to have the same captain. I think India's issue has been, we think about white ball cricket as 1A and 1B, as opposed to thinking them as two separate formats in T20 and ODI. But I think this was only Sundar's first or second ODI game, and great to see him step up. Like a guy who can bat and hit the ball as cleanly as he does, but also really keep runs tight and take breakthroughs. I mean, just a clinical day for him overall. I think he proved that he belongs at the scene. I think we're going to talk a little bit about this at the end, but I think just timing is also so interesting, right? As you think about timing of when this stuff happens, as you think about the Under-19 World Cup, you think about some of the players who performed in the Big Bash, and now you think about this 1 week, players like Huda and Sundar will be trying to get every performance they can under their belt just to drive up that IPL auction price. And so interesting. So Sundar, I think, I don't know if Sundar was retained. I'll have to look into that maybe in the break. But just all of these guys are driving up their prices and their value. And so I think just outstanding.
I don't think Sundar was retained. He's RCB, right? So I don't think he was retained.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, if he's proved that with the white ball, he can absolutely deliver with the ball, stay tight, keep bowl some tight overs and hit some runs. He's going to be a value add asset.
But I also think
he was not retained.
You're absolutely right in that you think of him as a containing T20 bowler. But I think what we saw today is that he can vary his game with the demands of the format. And where he needed to be attacking, he can be attacking. Where he needs to be restricting, he's got that game. And he's 22 years old, Ashwin. Again, we've watched these guys play for years, right? We've watched him play for the last, 5 years now? 2017, I think, is when he came onto the scene.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah, so he was 17 years old and he's 22 now. He's got his career ahead of him. He's already got a 96 in cricket. He's hit probably the most iconic pull shot played by an Indian in Australian shores. So, Anyway, obviously I'm a big Washi fan and I really enjoyed
he's played 31 T20s for the country, right? Which is really something by the time you're 22. And so great to see.
And he played his last ODI and his first ODI, because this was his second one ever. The last one he played was when Rohit Sharma got a double 100. I think he got his third double hundred when
I
he
did
played
not
that
remember
ODI.
that. That's pretty awesome, actually. That's
Yeah,
great. That's a great little
insanity.
stat.
Anyway, also the other guy who took a bunch of wickets, Ashwin, was one of your favorite players, Yuzvendra Chahal. Left out for India's T20 World Cup campaign. Did not bowl particularly well. He was quite disappointing on the South Africa ODI leg of the tour. But I mean, I think you've said it before, and Chelly is a champion. 4 for 49, man of the match performance. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? What I think was interesting is, first off, let's talk a little bit about the umpiring. It was horrendous today. Horrendous. I think
And
India
and
had
Rohit's
four.
reviewing. Rohit's
So,
reviews.
so
Bang
yeah,
on. Other than the one
yeah.
that
Well,
when he was batting.
so let's talk about him as a fielding captain first, right? Good reviews, and of course, there's a little bit of bias warning upcoming. But Chahal picked up 2 wickets in that first over, in that 20th over, including a great Pollard dismissal, which you were talking about off the air, which was
Superb.
just beautiful. A
Superb.
first
He
bowler,
goes through Pollard, hook, line, and sinker, googly through the gate,
yeah,
stump out of the ground, and I mean, just the perfect leg spinner's dismissal. First ball,
yeah,
googly, pitched, moved in. Pollard tries to drive it through the covers, and punk.
just
Superb.
bold, just so good. But I want to talk about that third wicket he took of Shamar Brooks, which was interesting. Another review decision. I think this was the third already, right? I think Darren Bravo was a
Yeah,
LBW review.
Darren
Puran
Bravo.
was a
Yeah.
and Puran was an LBW review. But
Yeah.
this one was so interesting for me because you could specifically see Rohit a little uncertain. Pant seemed convinced about it, and like the stump mics, the beauty of the stump mics is you heard Kohli basically say, "I think he edged it,"
Yeah.
and as soon as he said that, Rohit would go straight up, right? And so I don't know if I'm reading too much into it. We all will forever. But as soon as, like the question is, what influence does Kohli still have? Do they work well as a leadership group, even though he's not skipper? And I thought that was an interesting telling side where, this guy, Brooks had put up a little bit of resistance. He'd been around for a while. And the edge and punt celebrating at Rohit wasn't sure. And Kohli was definitely what convinced him to take that review upstairs. And of course, it turned out to be right. So anyway, I'll stop there. But that
No,
was an interesting moment from Shelley's spell for me.
let's stick with that theme. Of course, Chahal picked up another fourth wicket later, but Kohli on the field, not being captain, he's come out in the public domain and said that, you know what, I don't need to be a captain to be a leader in the team. He's made all the right noises, and people have said all of that. Rohit has acknowledged that he's a massive part of this team and all of that stuff. So, he obviously graces in the outfield in these games because he's a quick mover, he's a good fielder. Do you think that Kohli in the outfield, Kohli not being captain, I don't think it's taking away from him being able to provide his input. You saw him speaking to Prasidh Krishna a lot, right? While Prasidh Krishna was in the midst of his spell, I think they were 80 for 7 by that stage. So I don't think Kohli's fully gotten out of that mindset of captaincy, which is a good thing for Indian cricket, right? I mean, as long as it doesn't conflict with Rohit's instructions or Rohit's style of captaining.
Yeah, and I think some of it comes down to Rohit, right? You will have to make a call at some point if it's getting too much. And obviously, it's still the first one, but they've worked together enough. They've played together so much. Like Rohit used to be Kohli's advisor when Kohli was skipper. And now if they can just flip those roles and trust each other, I think it'll work great. Of course, Twitter likes to think there's a full out war happening between the two of them. There's obviously some drama happening behind the scenes with the board, but I can see a world where they continue to work well together. But of course, if we get to a point where Kohli is quote unquote overstepping his bounds or something, then Rohit reserves the right as the captain to lead the way he wants. But when it worked great, it's just nice to see them together.
Absolutely. And the West Indies, it was working beautifully as the West Indies were like 79 for 7. It looked like it was going to be a pretty early finish. So I was quite excited that Varun might be able to join us. But there was another twist in the tail. There was a bit of a fight back. There was Jason Holder and there was Fabian Allen who got together, put together a partnership. Holder got to 50. Holder's too good a batsman to be batting that low, man. Surely. I mean,
Holder is the person I was thinking of when I specifically talked about driving IPL values up based on how he played against England, how he's just showed up. He's showed up as a smart cricketer, a leader, can bowl when he needs to bat. And so to answer your question, I agree he could bat much higher in that lineup. But he is definitely going to go for big money next week.
And I know he's a big favorite of yours because you make him captain of your IPL fantasy team quite
He's worked
often.
well for me. And
Yeah,
every
because
time
he
I do
opens
that,
the
I beat
bowling,
you, I
takes
think.
few
Yeah.
wickets, bats and hits a few sixes. He batted well today, scored 50 odd. But then that partnership was broken at 156 for 8 with Washi coming back in, picking up Fabian Allen, a nice little return catch there. Chelly picked up his fourth. Prasidh Krishna picked up a wicket. There was a nice catch there by Rishabh Pant. Pant kept pretty well today, I thought. And that only left us 176 to get. Let's now talk about Ishan Kishan very quickly. We picked him over Mayank, who was also in the squad, could have opened the batting. Of course, Ruturaj Gaikwad, who would have been the natural replacement for Rahul and Dhawan, both who were not playing. Again, because I'm pretty sure Ruturaj had COVID in 2020 during the IPL, where he was in the Chennai camp. This was quite early on, before he scored those 2 ducks or 3 ducks in a row in the IPL. He was the next big thing.
Are you alleging that Ruturaj is patient zero? Okay. I'm just putting that. Just have to ask.
I think he got it. I think he got it quite early on, but I don't think he would be patient zero. I think there's a picture of MS Dhoni eating a bat, which is allegedly literally biting into his own bat. But anyway, let's not go there. This is a controversial opinion.
Somebody can help me clip that. The one sentence of you say there's a picture of MS Dhoni eating a bat. And
I need to actually find that
patient zero.
picture. I'll send it to you. It's a great little picture. I don't know why MS was biting into his bat, but anyway, we'll see. Sorry, where was I? Ruturaj didn't play. Ishan Kishan came in. But in a partnership where you think between Rohit and Ishan Kishan that there's one batter who's scoring faster than a run a ball and gets to their 50 when the other person is on 15, which of those two would you have picked?
Yeah, not at all characteristic. Very kind of measured, uncharacteristic knock played at below a run a ball. Rohit was obviously just looking to dominate proceedings. Look, it was 177, right? We should have finished it quickly. Rohit knew that. He said, let's just, try to, ultimately actually it looked a little scary at one point. When that fourth wicket fell, when Pant got run out, I was panicking for a split second. Of course, the middle order did manage to finish it off in this case. It wasn't a challenging enough task. But yeah, Ishan Kishan showed up very, very measured. And
I think Ishan Kishan just showed up.
Ishan Kishan, yeah. I've just my way of honoring Varun and making sure he listens to this. But Kishan showed up very measured and just an interesting dynamic to see. Does he feel like because he's lefty, because of that left-right partnership at the top of the order, he has room to become to replace Shikhar Dhawan, right, as an opener, and that's going to be interesting to see.
And the guy who didn't show up measured, Ashwin, was the ex-skipper. Well, now skipper, ex-skipper, because Rahul was the skipper in the last series. Virat Kohli, 8 of 4 balls, edged the first one for 4, flashed the second one outside off stump, hit it over backward point for 4, and then was out the 4th ball hooking to Alzari Joseph. And what was the rush?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? He came in only in the 14th over or so there wasn't really a rush, but Rohit was batting well on the other end at that point before he got out, and so obviously something about Kohli said, hey, Kishan is like taking the singles, playing more measured, let me come in and pick up from where Rohit left off. And when he hit those first 2 boundaries, we felt great about it. It looked exciting. It looked like he was here to stamp his authority. Obviously didn't end up working out, and to your point, big ground. Joseph was bowling the quickest today of all the other, and he just got the better of him. Kohli, has often succumbed to that hook shot, and it happened again today. So, not a huge deal because they didn't need him to finish the chase off. It wasn't a 320 run chase. We've seen him be the architect of some unbelievable chases, and so honestly, it was almost like by the time Rohit got out, we had to win that game, and so he just went for it a little bit.
You think he's trying to upstage Rohit a bit? See, I'm digging for the masala now.
See, the thing is, I also realize as I'm talking how defensive I am of Kohli. Like, if Pant had come in and hit 2 4s and got out, I would have been like, how come this guy doesn't have more temperament? Why does he should just see his team off to the like he got run out today. But
for once, he was not at fault today, poor guy Pant.
Yeah. But when Kohli did it, I'm like, yeah, he didn't need to do it. So he was just like, but it's amazing how the brain kind of rationalizes things. I get it. I'm self-aware of it. But it didn't bother me that Kohli got
But
out.
we should also not, Rohit looked like $1 million again, man. Wow. See, this is the thing. We've got to make sure that we give due credit to the captain. He captained well. He kept the field up.
100%. He batted great too. He just like knew that it was a chase. He could dominate early on and, make sure the match got taken away from the West Indies within the first 8 or 9 overs. And he did exactly that. He got out by the 13th over or 14th over. Yeah. And by that point, it was basically game finished. Now it's a question of who's going to make 25 runs at a run a ball to finish it off. And basically Sky and Huda kind of did that and finished it off. So, yeah.
Yeah, what do you think of my idea of pushing Rohit and Kohli to 3 and 4 and giving the youngsters some license up top to go hard? Because I came up with this like on the spot last week, a week before, and I was like, but I've always said Rohit should be opening the batting. Now am I saying he should be 3 and 4?
I don't see a world where we take Rohit away from opening. He may be currently one of the best, if not the best, 50 over opener in the world.
And test opener. He's opened brilliantly in test.
Sure, yeah. But I was specifically saying, I was going to say white ball. You could argue there are some players who had a better record than him in the T20 international format, right? But in ODIs, like Rohit and Dhawan have got to be the strongest opening player in the world right now, still. And so I don't, there's a world where we change it. There's a world where we try things and all, but I actually think my question for you, and we've spent far too long talking about this. We have to talk about the Under-19 boys and stuff too. But my question for you is on Pant at 4. Again, when he walked in at 4, Twitter seemed to light up. A lot of people saying, what are we doing? Do we either want him to be a top order? Do we want him to be a finisher? Is 4 really his role? When you have Iyer, when you have somebody like a Sky. So do you think there's a longer term play where Sky and Huda type of players are being groomed to be finishers and like, hey, don't get out, finish the match off, and Pant is being groomed to break? Like, I don't know. In what world does an aggressive player like Pant play at 4? Shouldn't he either go up at the top, make the runs early in the power play overs, or come in and finish matches? But why 4? Does it make sense?
It's a great question, but I just like the idea of Pant batting 30 overs in a ODI game. If Pant bats 30 overs, he'll win most of those games because he's not going to bat.
But shouldn't he do that? Shouldn't you do that? He do that up starting at the top when he gets the benefit
I've said that, but we're so top heavy with all the players that we have. Yeah, we have Rohit, Rahul, Ishan Kishan, you have Shikhar Dhawan, you've got, I'm pretty sure there are 3 or 4 other names, Rituraj Gaikwad. There are too many people ahead of him in line, right?
Sure.
And so what I liked today was Sky's innings. I thought it was a really nice little 30-odd that he played. Plus, Deepak Huda did chances no harm. But as you said, we have spent way too long talking about this because it was meant to be a short little segment, easy game, finished with 22 overs in hand. But there's so much to talk about for every game. But yeah, it was a great performance. 2 more games to go, and then the 3 T20s. So we will be back after this short break to talk about the India Under-19 boys, and Ashwin may give us a little bit of a flavor of the upcoming IPL auction as well. So don't go anywhere. This is the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, good friend of the show, good friend of Cyrus and myself, Mangalam Mallu is on. He's the assistant editor and anchor at CNBC TV 18, and he and Cyrus discuss how the budget of 2022 affects us all. On This Round Is On Me, we flipped the script as Gauri is a guest on her own show. Check it out as Kavita Rajwade, my co-founder at IVM Podcast, hosts this very special episode. On Misconduct, Ragvi and Nisha are joined by Priya Mirza. She's the host of the Longest Constitution podcast. They take a close look at the former Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi. On Audio Gyan, Kedar talks to Dr. Sumin Patel. She's the co-founder of the Bombay Wala Historical Works. She talks about how she picks out the most interesting stories to showcase. And on Tere Mere Raste, Keshav tells us the amazing transformation of the ravaged land of Purnapani. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, please do tell a friend. It really does help us when you spread the word about our podcast. And I'd also like to ask you if you could rate or recommend wherever you listen to our podcast. And speaking of where you listen to this show, if you're on an Android phone, do check out our new Android app. We have a brand new app with a brand new listening experience. Definitely check it out. I think you will enjoy it. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back from that break, and you're still listening to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Ashwin, India have won an ICC trophy after quite a long time. It has been, this is the 5th Under-19 World Cup that India have won. But I think what really made me feel good was the captain Yash Dhull's comment after the game. And I think I sent you guys a screenshot of that. And so Yash Dhull, I quote, says, The ice cream has reached the rooms of every player. We will have it and enjoy ice creams now. We had to maintain a strict diet for this tournament, so now we will enjoy some ice cream. How heartwarming is that as a
I mean,
comment?
it's just so great. We watch them, we're cheering for them, all this stuff. And then, but you also realize these kids are under 19. There's some who are 16 in this squad. Like, you think about celebrations when the English team won the World Cup, or when the Aussies won the Ashes and stuff, they're celebrating with beer. Formula One drivers celebrate with champagne. Most of these kids can't legally drink in most parts of the world, and probably don't. And so just great. Like, they're celebrating with, they worked hard as basically children, didn't get to eat everything they wanted, had to have stricter diets during the month probably leading up to and the World Cup. It's just so exciting for them to celebrate with ice cream. Just very, very sweet. Just a heartwarming sentiment.
It was so good, and as I said, I think a couple of weeks ago, you see you're watching a very serious game of cricket because they're wearing the same colors as the boys. They're all quite like athletic, and they're 18, 19 years old, but the reactions are so different from these youngsters where you miss a run out, they're like, oh, it's like the end of the world. It was so great. But I mean, we have to talk about some of these players. They are absolutely magnificent.
Just before you do, can you name the 5 captains for India that have won it?
Oof, this is hard.
I just saw.
Virat Kohli is one. Unmukh Chand, Prithvi Shaw,
Yeah.
of course now Yash Dhull.
Who was 5? 5 was the one that almost stumped me, and I just saw an Instagram
Mohammad
post by
Kef.
Cricket
Mohammad
Force.
Kef.
There
Mohammad
it is.
Kef.
Okay.
Boom,
Never a
shaka
doubt.
laka.
You always do it.
That's
you
it.
always do it.
That's
He was
it,
the first
that's
one, actually. Kef was the first one.
Yeah, he was because he's 2000. I think 2000 maybe, or 2002. 2002 was the Karthik era, I think. Anyway, Shikhar Dhawan scored a lot of runs in 2002. Anyway, we digress.
And then Pujara scored a lot of runs under Kohli's leadership. Like, what a great precursor to the years to come.
But you were telling me about Indian captains in semi-finals scoring hundreds, and Yash Dhull against Australia. India were 2 wickets down for 13 runs, just a wicket away from the infamous 15 for 3 that all Indian fans and everyone on edges and sledges really dreads. This man walks in and scores a magnificent 110, bides his time. He has a partnership, I think, can't remember who he had a partnership with. Was it
Sheikh Rashid?
And he got 95, right?
94, yeah.
Just
batting at
fell
number
short.
3. MSK Prasad has said he could be India's future number 3, actually. Which is a big
and there's a
statement.
great story about how Andhra took him under their wing and they groomed him, and I'll put the link in the show notes to that, because this is what happens every time we have an Under-19 World Cup. We have all these incredible stories coming out. You had Yashasvi Jaiswal last time around, how he stayed at the ground, and I think he sold pani puri or puchkas or golgappas to like the people he used to play cricket with, and now look at him, he's playing for the Rajasthan Royals. He's probably pushing for an India spot now. So these stories are just brilliant. But let's focus on the cricket a bit. First up, last time around 2020, I remember the heartbreak that these boys went through. The Bishnoi and the Jaiswal generation lost the final against Bangladesh. There was quite a lot of controversy. I remember we tweeted about it. There was a fight after the end of the Under-19 World Cup, which is pretty insane. The Under-19 final. And so the first thing for these boys to get through was to beat Bangladesh. And Ashwin, who's this guy Ravi Kumar, man? Because you know what? We are used to getting destroyed by left-arm seamers. Trent Bolt, Mohammad Amir, Shaheen Shah Afridi in the knockouts of ICC tournaments. But for once, we were the guys doing the destruction. Talk to me about this lefty seamer, man.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? Like, I guess since Zahir, I know we've had a few come and go from Unadkat to these guys, but since Zahir, we haven't actually had a lefty quick. So what was interesting before we get any deeper into that was we were talking about how we're going to cover both this first ODI between India, West Indies, and then the final of the Under-19 World Cup. And both had quite a few parallels, right? Where the other team batted first, had one basically good innings, but then weren't able to accelerate too much, had a little flourish at the end, and then India came in and chased it down. The difference being where we picked up 7 wickets in Ahmedabad with spinners, 9 of the wickets in Antigua in the final went to the quicks, right? And obviously picked up Raj Baba picked up a 5 for just outstanding. We could again spend all day talking about these kids, but Ravi Kumar picked up a 4 for just an unbelievable type of spell of bowling, and a whole series. I'm trying to pull up his stats. I don't remember how many wickets he took in the whole tournament, but just so deadly. Looked so deadly up front with the new ball. He ended up picking 10 wickets in the whole tournament at an average of 13.2. Just outstanding. Like, so good to see. And now again, we start thinking of, okay, who makes their way into the national side? Which of these under-19 guys, deservedly so, will get some good money at the auction? And this is big money for these guys at any age, but especially at the young age they have. So it's so exciting to see. It's such a great testament to the system, the grassroots culture that Indian cricket has built. For some of the criticism I give Ganguly and the BCCI with the way they handle Kohli, you have to give credit to having such a depth and of talent at such young ages.
Yeah, lots to unpack there actually, because of course, Ganguly has said we may have a women's IPL in 2023, which is pretty exciting news for Indian cricket fans. Let's see if that materializes. But there's also Raj Angad Bawa. You talked about him briefly. He picked up 5 wickets. He had the best bowling ever in an under-19 final, and this guy also scored 162 not out against Uganda, which is the highest ever individual score. He was not allowed to bowl fast for 5 years. He's only 19 years old, or less than 19 years old, right? Out of that 5 years, he's not been allowed to bowl fast by his dad because he wanted him to become a batting all-rounder, right? Clearly, he's pretty good at batting. He comes and picks up 5 wickets in the under-19 final. I mean, what is this amount of talent that these kids have, man? Like, he actually beat Shikhar Dhawan's score in an under-19 final. But, I mean, 5 for 31, ran through England's middle order, and we never looked like we were going to lose that game. And it was brilliant. And, I mean, the celebrations were incredible. Yash Dhull, I mean, I think he's an absolute star in the making as well. Delhi boy, middle order bat, scored 100 under immense pressure. I think Shubman Gill scored 100 in the semi-final in the one that we won under Prithvi Shaw against Pakistan. Look where Shubman is these days. So maybe we'll be talking about Mr. Dhull pretty soon as well in that same breath. Maybe in the next Australia victory that we'll be celebrating in a test series there. But it's so exciting, man. I'm so pleased for these kids. But you spoke very briefly about the IPL auction. Which of these guys do you think are going to fetch big money? I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell me who you think. Because we haven't talked about one of your favorite players, who's a left-arm spinner. And every time
I was going to say, we also
wicket,
haven't talked about your guy who finished, quote unquote, finished it off in style.
Yeah. Well, you go first. But
Of course, I feel like at some point somebody's going to do the math. I think one of our listeners on Twitter always does the math on how many seconds in any episode of Edges and Sledges until DJ brings up MS Dhoni. And of course, you brought him up earlier already. But before we hit the record button and before we started recording this show, DJ made a point to say that Dinesh Bana, who was wicketkeeper, I guess batted at 8, came in and quote unquote finished it off in style as a wicketkeeper batsman. So anyway, I wanted to make sure we talked that one. But
yeah, please check out the ICC's reel, which I'm actually playing because it's MS Dhoni finishing it off in style.
We don't want to get in YouTube like content violation stuff.
Yeah,
Just be careful.
I'll go off.
But yeah, we can post a link to it obviously because it's an official ICC reel. But to your question, I think honestly, first off, all of these kids deserve an IPL contract, right? Even if you don't get to play much, or it's just the opportunity to like network with the big wigs, be in the same dressing room as people like Kane Williamson, David Warner, and of course Kohli and Rohit and these guys. Just it's going to be a great learning experience and help groom them for the future. So I'll start there. I do think at this stage, what differentiates the players who will get a bid or not is the people with something more unique, right? And that's sad because there's some great batsmen. I mean, Raghuvanshi was an outstanding opener, but a lot of the teams have depth of openers, right? And a lot of different openers. So as I think about who I think is likely to get, from my perspective, likely to get some big bids. One, Raj Baba, like we talked. Quick bowling all-rounder, just gives you a lot of options, right? Can bat well, can bowl well. The second, Ravi Kumar, like we talked again, but lefty, right? Brings in that left. I do think Vicky Ostwal, who I'm a fan of, who just had this unbelievable ability to pick up wickets, I do think he will go as well and get a chance to play. I hope he does get a chance to play. And then, I mean, I'm looking down the list now. Nishant Sindhu had a great World Cup. Yash Dhull showed up strong. So I hope they all get a chance to play. I do think it's just a balance, right? Like Priyam Garg was the captain in the last World Cup when India did well, obviously didn't finish with the trophy. And then his transition into the IPL was a little bit rocky. So I hope the teams and the managers and the coaches and the captains help these guys adjust, just acknowledging how young they are and how much of a jump it can be to play in the IPL. But those are some of my predictions, but just super excited to see these kids play in IPL colors.
And we'll be talking about all of the big picks, the highs, the lows of the IPL auction, which takes place over the next weekend. So that's going to be a pretty exciting little weekend alongside the India-West Indies game. Ashwin, I want to get a quick reaction, by the way. The other big news in the world of cricket this week was Justin Langer. He's left the Australia job. Australia have just won the Ashes 4-0. Didn't get the endorsement of the Ashes winning captain Patrick Cummins. And there's news that he may swap to England across the Ashes divide. Is that like in...
I didn't hear that one. I've been out of it for the last day or so. Is that really true? He's in the... Oh, I'm seeing it now in the frame for an England coaching role. My gosh.
Andrew Strauss has said that he may be. Is that like... I don't know. Is that like an Indian coach going to coach Pakistan or Pakistani coach coming to coach India or something? What would you make of that?
That's huge, actually. That's huge. I mean, first off, I thought it was interesting that he... basically, without spending too much time on it, ended up stepping down because he didn't have support from the players and the board, right? That's ultimately what it was. And you said Cummins didn't unequivocally support him. Then he apologized for being too intense in his resignation letter. Like, that's just a summary of his time as his tenure as coach, right? Like, even in the resignation letter, he said he was too intense. But yeah, I don't know if he's going to go across the pond to England. I think coaches sometimes have a point to prove, and some of it just depends on his life and the choices he like. Does he want to be doing this for the next 25, 30 years? He could get a great gig as a coach, I'm sure, of an IPL team or a Big Bash team, which is arguably 2 or 3 months of work a year and then more chill. But if he wants to take on the responsibility of like England's red ball team, which needs some work, it's a much bigger project, right? It just depends on kind of what he wants from his personal life, I think.
Absolutely. We'll see how that situation develops. But I think that is the show for this week. Ashwin, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure, as always, speaking to you about all things happening in the world of cricket. I think we're both in a better mood with that convincing win for India and the Under-19 World Cup. It's been a pretty dark January, let's be honest. As Kohli fans, we've felt a bit of loss with the Test series. We've lost the one-day series 3-0 as well. But February has started on a much, much better note. So let's hope the rest of the year goes the same way. Congratulations once again to the coach as well, Rishikesh Kanitkar and Sairaj Bhautale, who put together the World Cup winning team. It's going to be an exciting bunch of players to watch out for, so I'm really looking forward to that. And you can write into us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at OneTipOneHand. You can write an email to us at contact@onetiponehand.com and leave us an Apple review, and we will read it out on the show. We will make sure that that goes on to the show. And please do rate us on Spotify, guys, because the more ratings you give us, the more people find us, and the more we get motivated to bring you awesome content every week. And that's it, guys. This is the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast signing off. We'll see you next week.